welcome to another episode of the Aligned Feminine podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Atikaa Ahluwalia, who is a partner at Ina Ahluwalia, a niche conceptual jewelry brand. As a survivor of partner abuse, she has been working on creating awareness on intimate partner violence and domestic violence on social media since 2018. She now runs multiple online support groups for victims and survivors and offers free one-on-one sessions bi-weekly as a safe space for both. She lives in Bangalore with her partner Deepak and her two cats, Pikachu and Loki. Welcome, Atikaa. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and share your voice today.
Thank you so much, Akanksha. This is such a pleasure, not only because it's, such an important space, but because it's you.
Yes, I know. And we are, of course, seeing each other after a very long time. And I'm very excited to have a conversation with you because otherwise you just don't get a chance also sometimes.
I remember that I used to see you in the NIFT hostel in the Delhi hostel.
Yeah.
And that was a godforsaken place.
What
Yes,
a
you
nightmare.
remember. What a nightmare it was. But there were pockets of happiness, and you were one of those really sweet girls. You were one of those, I think, were you an awkward, shy person in college? Because I was. But were you?
I've mostly been an introvert, but then once I get to know someone, then I'm just like,
Yes.
yeah.
But I used to always look at you and say, she should be a model. That's what I would look at you and say. And you were really one of those sweet ones. You're really one of those nice, sweet ones. And
Thank you.
yeah, so that's how I remember you.
Oh, thank you so
Special
much.
place in my heart.
Oh, I remember the first time I saw you, I was just blown away by your hair.
I had a lot of
like,
it.
Whoa, so sexy. My God. I was just like, what are those hair? Yeah, that was a bit of a turn on for me.
Oh, I don't
Your hair
mind.
was really sexy, man. Yeah.
Very long, yeah. I didn't think that way, you'd be surprised. For the longest time, I hated my hair because I wasn't allowed to cut it, right? Because I was a Sardar. But I've learned to love my hair. It's just that when you're told you can't do something with something that you have, you begin to resent it. You don't find your peace in that place. But took me a long time to understand that my hair was actually an asset and not something I needed to fight with. But
I'm
anyway,
glad you got there. Yeah.
thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, Atikaa. So I think for starters, I would like you to begin with sharing your journey, what your journey has been, how it started, how you sort of forged your way out of it, and how you are here today.
Right. So, when you sent me these questions, I was just thinking about stuff in my head. And I actually had a breakthrough while thinking about this particular question, because I started with the question that I had a really happy childhood. So when you talk about partner abuse and being in unhealthy relationships, I was like, when did that start? Because I actually had a very happy childhood. There was nothing that I saw at home that made me move to this place. So going back, I grew up in Calcutta, and I was a really shy, awkward child. I have an elder sister who was really friendly. Now she's the introvert, but she was really friendly and outgoing. So I never had to make conversations. Then when she went for her MBA to Bombay, that's when I started in class 10, 11, being the one who needed to make the conversation. That's when I started coming out of my shell. And I remember my first relationship was actually a really healthy one. So I went to college in Pune, and I was in a long distance relationship, and it was with a very healthy person, and it was a really beautiful, healthy relationship. And when I was thinking about your question, it suddenly dawned on me that when did the switch from choosing healthy partners to choosing unhealthy partners happen? And that's when I realized that because of the long distance relationship, it kind of took a toll on us, and I took a call to get out of it. And I think the guilt of leaving such an amazing person, such a healthy person, such a healthy partnership took a toll on me. And that's when I would say, when I came to NIFT, just before, I'd say the last year before coming to NIFT in Delhi in 2004, is when the guilt suddenly, I read somewhere that guilt makes you do terrible things to yourself. And that's when there was this switch, and I started choosing, not so well for myself.
Wow.
And the breakthrough was because I have been struggling with this question, why did that switch happen? Because I remember in college in Simbi, one of my friends asked me, oh, you're in a long distance relationship. Aren't you, worried? Don't you get insecure? And my question to her was, for what and why? I was that secure,
Yeah.
and I was that comfortable, and the partner was that, trustworthy. And then it just switched after that. So the breakthrough was basically that it is the guilt of leaving that one healthy relationship
Wow.
that made me take a series of decisions that made me feel unworthy because I felt unworthy, and the choices mirrored my feelings of unworthiness. So anyways, going moving on, I came to NIFT in Delhi. I would say I was in an unhealthy partnership all throughout that time. And from then until I would say 2019, I
Mm-hmm.
had a string of, I would say again, bad relationships that I could have avoided.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was actually extremely abusive. And that's the relationship that has kind of changed the course of my life and brought me to my mission today. And that was a relationship that was physically, emotionally, mentally, extremely abusive. And dare I say, and I don't talk about this one often, but sexually abusive as well. And I remember that when I left, I knew from that day that I left that I needed to talk about this, because when it happened to me, the common perception was, why didn't you leave earlier? And how could this happen to you? Because I don't look like the kind of person who could have been in an abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
Back in my time, these things didn't happen to our families, right? Or to girls
Mm-hmm.
from our families. You had to be poor or uneducated or financially dependent. So I remember the day I left that abusive relationship, and that's a whole journey in itself, is when I said, I would like to do something in this space because more people need to understand how this happens, why this happens, the fact that you don't need to stay in one and that you have choices. And I wanted to provide perspective that life doesn't need to stay that way. So that's one aspect of my journey. And simultaneously, from NIFT, I came to Bangalore for my first job in Madura Garments. And I had the best job, the best bosses. I just had a blast. Um, but me being me, we talk about gut and intuition in this podcast. So, me being me, somewhere in my gut, I just felt empty. And having said that, I had the best environment that supported me completely. But after 3 years, I decided I didn't want to be in the corporate world. And I came home to Calcutta and I saw my sister who had left her corporate job to make jewelry. And I really loved what I saw. And I really believed that she was immensely talented. And I decided to take the call to leave my job and join her. And yeah, so simultaneously, my path went from what I thought it would be, which was, corporate, to
Yeah.
entrepreneurial. And also, my entrepreneurial journey helped me have the time, space, energy to simultaneously follow my passion work, which is creating awareness on intimate partner violence, domestic violence, any form of abuse within close interpersonal relationships. And yeah, that was also a journey in the sense that I couldn't talk about it for a certain amount of time, and then I could not find it in me to talk about it after I could talk about it. And I think when the Me Too movement happened in 2018, that's when I decided to just put my
Oh,
story out
wow.
there,
Okay.
because I felt like enough women were talking about stuff. And yep, it's been a journey from there, and I need to do a lot more, but I'm working on it.
Wow. And so because of the Me Too movement, you also it provided you with a certain amount of safety that yeah, now it's okay to talk about it. Wow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Otherwise, you feel isolated in this, this lone voice saying, this happens, this happened to me, it should not happen to you. You just feel like society has a wonderful way of making you feel, of stunting your voice every time you try to speak. At least that was the
Yeah.
case before that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I remember a comment that my friend, a very close friend, made because I had started writing articles on violence, intimate partner violence. And he said, oh, every time I see a new post by Atikaa, I'm like, again, she's going to cry about intimate partner violence. And I was like, I was taking it.
Damn.
Yeah, I was really like, shit, am I sounding mopey and, angry?
Oh. Hmm.
But it takes a long time to understand that people don't want you to talk. And that's why you should.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. I hope you snip, cut that friendship out. I don't know.
Somewhat. Yeah. I'm pretty
Because,
ruthless that way, but I've realized as you grow older,
yeah,
one is the snip, and one is the you just put them at the periphery of your life. And,
exactly. Yeah. And they just kind of like fall away on their own.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
And I want you to share what exactly your sessions look like when you do these group sessions. What exactly happens?
So they're actually one-on-one sessions, and the idea started with whenever you speak your truth, there will be people who reach out to you because you've displayed your vulnerability, and so they feel safe to talk to you and display theirs and
Yeah.
expose their deepest, darkest secrets. So this started happening to me a lot on Instagram in my DMs.
Okay.
And then I decided, okay, let's formalize this because some people are awkward to reach out and talk. So that's when I started the one-on-one sessions. And what happens is it's pretty simple. You book a session on Calendly. There's this, I dedicate twice, I work, right? So I dedicate 2 times a week, 1 hour slots to these sessions. I have this extensive list because there are so many privacy concerns, there are so many confidentiality concerns. I have a little bit of a disclaimer that people fill out before they are accepted into the session.
Mhm.
And then it's literally the person um, telling me what they're going through. And I make it very clear that I'm not speaking from a therapist's point of view because I am not a certified therapist. I'm
Sure.
speaking to you from a survivor point of view
Yeah.
because there is a perspective that a survivor can provide that I believe nobody else can. And
Mm.
even though I say therapy comes first, a lot of people don't have access to therapy,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people don't have access, a lot of people don't have the finances, which is why this is always a free session, just for you to feel safe, for you to feel heard. A lot of people have a question: is this even violence? The
Mm.
most common question is it really that bad?
Yeah.
They don't believe it's that bad. They don't see it from an outsider point of view.
Yeah.
The abuse is so normalized.
Yeah.
So it's usually, I would say, the first 45 minutes tends to be just them telling me their entire story and how they feel and how what they feel they should or shouldn't do. A lot of them are looking for validation that this is abuse,
Yeah.
and that validation itself is huge.
Yeah.
A lot of them are looking for sometimes it's not abuse, and that's when I tell them this may be something else, but it's not abuse. It
Mm.
provides perspective, and the most important part of the session, I would say, is an unbiased perspective, because there is nothing that I gain from doing the session,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I always recommend therapy first, but as a supplemental thing that you can do, you can speak to a survivor, and she's going to be able to understand you in a way that nobody will. So there's a sense of judgment that they don't feel during their sessions with me, that they
Yeah.
feel that they could feel with friends, family, etc. So that's what a typical session looks like. And of
Yeah.
course, there are follow-up sessions sometimes. um, I've seen people go through like their journey from a session to leaving an abusive relationship
Mm.
to moving on and finding a new
Wow.
job. So it's like usually a
Oh.
journey, and
Yeah.
it's really fulfilling.
Yeah. I bet. Wow. Okay. Yeah, and when you were saying that, people feel like they'll be judged by friends and family. I know so many people who feel that they'll be judged even by a therapist, and which is why
Absolutely.
they don't seek therapy. And so, yeah, there is, of course, all that stigma around therapy also, which is a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. And if we were to, because you have spoken to so many people now, what kind of patterns do you notice coming up, and what are these how do you better understand patterns of not just the abuser, but also the person who is on the receiving end of the abuse? Like, what kind of patterns usually stand out?
Right. That's such an important question because I think that is where the work lies in the future.
Yeah,
Till now, we've just been living these patterns without really theoretically and practically looking at them. But in a nutshell, let's start with ourselves. Okay? I'll start with my own experience. I think the first most common pattern is a lack of self worth.
yeah,
Now, we're all talking about self love, we're all talking about self esteem, we're all talking about self worth, but it is so vital. And I think the first hook that an abusive personality hooks onto when they're looking for someone to control. So if they see you could be the most beautiful person in the world, you could be the CEO of an MNC. I
mm,
have people who are emergency surgeons, head of emergency wards, surgeons, doctors. um, the common there are lawyers, there are entrepreneurs, there are housewives, there are homemakers. The common pattern is there is an inherent lack of self-worth.
mm,
Most of this comes from your childhood, where you for some reason do not feel good enough. uh, in most cases there is a mirroring of what you see in your childhood home. If you see a parent either being abusive or the other parent being submissive towards it. It's funny because this is what I used to think of. I haven't seen this in my home. Why did this happen to me? um, but that's the thing. The lack of self-worth doesn't just come from the home. It comes from everything outside your home. Your parents might not even know what's happening to you outside your home.
yeah,
So one of the biggest patterns is self-worth. Especially women in India, we are taught in 1,000 ways that we are not good enough, right?
yeah,
Even if we are papa's princesses and mama's darlings, society has a way of telling us we're not good enough. I'll give you a very small instance, okay? And this is how every word that you hear in childhood, it matters. So I'm a Sardarni again. I was a really hairy child, okay? Like, you say hair, I had hair everywhere. So yeah, I'm comfortable saying it now at 40 plus. My God, this was like my biggest stress in life when I was
Oh,
younger.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So I had an auntie who once very like very you know just randomly stroked my arm and said, "Ye to bhalu hai." And I was
Mm,
8 years old, right?
oh,
I
wow.
remember thinking, I haven't heard, I remember that scene like it was yesterday.
Mm,
So there are small things like that, or there may be an instance in a family where a family has made a girl to feel less than because she has a brother who's treated differently, or someone says that you're not fair enough, for whatever reason. Women
yeah,
in India are told that they're not good enough. So a society is already on that tangent that you're not good enough.
yeah.
And the Raja Betas are always treated so much better. The women
Mm,
have to perform so much more to be recognized for the same things. So, one is inherent self worth. Secondly, is we're always taught to cower inwards,
mm.
take up less space.
Yeah, don't be
Again,
too loud. Yeah.
don't be too loud, don't take up too much space. Again, this could not be in your family, but it could be in society, and you over time condition yourself to accommodate. What is the one word that we hear a lot? This is my family including. You have to be adjusting. You have to
Beta
be
adjust kar
adjusting.
lo.
Adjust kar lo. You have to be adjusting. Nahi to, kal ko which family will, you'll have to adjust in a family. So this adjust becomes like we become accommodating, and then you're accommodating so much
Yeah,
that somewhere it's at the cost of yourself.
yeah.
So this is the biggest pattern, number one. Number two is we're not comfortable with being by ourselves.
Hmm.
Our generation has grown up on the worst fairy tales ever, where someone's going to come and save you. Or at
Yeah,
the end of the day, there was always a happy ending. That's
yeah.
when our marriage began, and
The
the
movie
happy
ended.
movie ended. After that, nobody has any clue what has happened.
Yeah,
Correct. So that is another problem with the way we think. Our goal is get married and everything is going to become okay, or find a guy or a girl or a person that you love and everything is going to happen like naturally after that. That is not the truth. We all have so much unhealed, unresolved uh, trauma. I'd like to say trauma inside of us. And unless we work with that, we're always going to attract unhealed people. This is another thing I want to say. We don't have to finish our healing to attract a finished, healed person. We just have to work towards our healing. And then you'll find a partner or a person or a tribe or a sisterhood or a gang that's also simultaneously working towards healing.
Yeah.
Thirdly, we don't believe in sisterhood enough as yet,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That's a
right?
big one. That's a big one.
Yes,
There is so
yes.
much competition that we
So much
feel
competition.
towards other women.
Absolutely. And I believe women can be your biggest allies,
Mm.
right? And your biggest enemies if you're with the wrong kind of tribe. But I have survived because of my female friendships. And I believe that we need to, change the narrative from find a partner, find a partner, find a partner to find your tribe of,
Yeah,
find your tribe. Find your sisterhood, your brotherhood, your personhood. Just find your tribe because that's going to actually get you through so much in life and
yeah,
heal you.
yeah,
So, and people heal in groups. I believe it takes a village to heal
yeah,
one person. So, everyone's healing together or everyone's pulling each other down,
yeah,
right? You got to find the right tribe. So, these are a couple of patterns with the kind of people that, do tend to gravitate towards unhealthy relationships, a lack of self worth. I can tell you, I had it. I didn't believe I was beautiful enough. I didn't believe I was attractive enough.
mm-hmm.
I would say it was all because of my body dysmorphia, as I am beginning to understand. Second is we don't have enough of a sisterhood of support. If a best friend tells you this person is not good for you, we look at her as jealous instead of really taking her opinion and seeing that she could have a point to it.
Yeah,
And thirdly, society makes you, dumb down so much that you land up adjusting at the cost of yourself.
yeah.
There's so much more, but that's another day. Um, the patterns when it comes to abusive personalities are pretty textbook. The most common line that I say to everybody in my DMs or my one on one sessions is, you know, same story, different details. It's literally that textbook.
Okay.
So every abusive personality tends to love bomb in the beginning of the relationship. So a person who has low self-worth feels like this person is everything they've dreamed of, because how could I be worthy of so much love? How could I
Yeah,
be worthy of so much attention? And that's how they get hooked in. So the common pattern is that they all love bomb to begin with. Um, they all withdraw the love bombing and the attention after a certain amount of time. It's always about control. It's not really about supporting your journey. It's about you supporting everything that they desire. It's always about how you fit into their picture of life, not how you grow together parallelly, right? It's a lot of manipulation. A lot of abusive personalities' love is actually about manipulation. So it's not, you'll find yourself second guessing yourself a lot that,
hmm,
am I really like this? Am I not a good partner? If I love him enough, maybe I should do this. Maybe he's right. So you'll find yourself second guessing yourself a lot.
hmm,
There's usually urgency in such relationships. Like, so if you find an abusive person, they're going to love bomb you and they're going to manipulate you into committing really soon because they cannot hold that act together for too long,
yeah,
right? So they will most likely manipulate you into a commitment very fast. And once you do commit, that's when the withdrawal will start. So, but the overriding pattern is control. So there will be control which is insidious. It will not start. If I met a person today and they said, I don't like your hair like this, change your clothes, don't go there, don't get there, I'm not going to fall for that person, right?
yeah,
Right? So
yeah,
it never starts like that. So we have to
yeah.
remember that abusive personalities don't have horns on their heads. They
Mm,
don't have, they're not red or green in color.
yeah, they can look
And
very sexy.
they can look very, oh, Most of them are really charming at first. Okay, very
Yeah.
charming. They're mostly, people who speak well. People tend to like them. They tend to have a big circle of friends. Of course, there's a covert narcissist, which is totally different. But mainly, they tend to attract people, which
Hmm.
is why you'll find them in top positions in corporates. You'll find them in the entertainment industry. You'll find them in any industry that requires one to be in the spotlight.
Hmm.
So they're not going to have horns on their heads. Take your time and wait for the act to be over.
Yeah. I read somewhere,
Hmm.
I'm forgetting where, but it said that usually it takes about 6 months for a person to finally start to get tired of like the persona that they're putting on and
Yeah.
then, show their like
Yeah.
authentic selves.
Very true. My
Yeah.
therapist said this to me. She said, so another factor of women, or sorry, people who get into abusive relationships is an innate codependency. Okay.
Hmm.
Now,
Okay.
so because I am a codependent person, my innate characteristic is to be codependent, something that I'm working towards not being. My therapist told me the same thing. She said, wait for at least 3 months before you even begin to think about something serious with the person that you're dating, because 3 months is when the act starts to break down, and 6 months is when they cannot put up the act anymore.
Hmm.
So you're very right. And that's why there's this sense of urgency from the abuser's side, right? Because
Yeah.
they know it's going to
Yeah.
uh,
Can you give
disintegrate.
an example of what do you mean when you say like sense of urgency? What are the kind of things they would, I don't know, say or ask of you?
So there are many routes, but let me tell you, for example, the most common thing that I hear in my sessions is when, even during an arranged marriage route, women have met their partners, their parents have introduced them to each other, and the parents of the abusive personality, who they don't know is abusive, tend to insist on a very early marriage ki jaldi karo,
Hmm.
jaldi
Okay.
roka karo, jaldi engagement karo,
Yeah. Okay.
right? A couple of days it's like, oh my god, I think I love you, and if you don't love me back, I
Hmm.
can't deal with it. I love you so much. I won't be able to take anything, but I love you too.
Hmm.
You know, Another thing is, a great example of this is a very shit example, but you must watch Love is Blind on Netflix. It
Okay.
is an example of how people rush into things and how some people manipulate other women and men into getting into a relationship really soon. So, for example, the current season I'm watching on Netflix, it's hilarious, okay? There's this guy, he meets this girl, and within 4 days he's like, I love you, and
Hmm.
I need to ask your dad for your hand in marriage. And it's either tell me now, yes, or no, tell me now. And then she comes out without telling him yes, and then she sees that he said the same thing to another girl, exact same thing.
Oh, okay.
So basically, rushing would be forcing you to commit way sooner than you feel comfortable to commit. And it's never like, okay, I understand, this is how I feel, take your time, think about it.
Yeah.
It's never like that. It's always like, say yes or I'm out of your life. And by
Yeah.
that time, the codependent person has been love bombed so much that they're like, oh my god, I can't lose this amazing fantastical love and attention that I'm getting,
Yeah.
right? So it's always an ultimatum types.
Understood.
Also, it's too much too soon. Remember, if it's too much too soon, it's probably love bombing.
Like they say, if it's too good to be true, then yeah, it probably
If
is.
it's too good to be true, trust me, it's not good. 100%. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just think, sit and think what is the catch and try and find out, because there's no such thing as too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you also please explain for the audience what do you mean when you say you are a codependent? How does somebody recognize that they are a codependent person?
Right. So again, not a therapist point of view, not a psychology student's point of view, but from my understanding of the years of therapy that I insisted on going to, um, when our pattern of attachment is so enmeshed with somebody else and not rooted in ourselves, then we are codependent. So for example, um, I used to be codependent. So if I got attached to somebody, uh, I would immediately transfer all my, all the onus of all my emotions onto how that person was feeling. So I was all about that person. How is that person feeling? How to make that person comfortable? My happiness comes from whether they're happy or not. So it's rooted externally in another person and not within myself. Right. And that has been the biggest unlearning of my life, because that is where you're betraying yourself, right? Because
Mm.
your happiness and your emotions cannot be rooted in an external source. It has to come from inside.
Mm.
And this codependency is what makes you feel like you need to hold on to an unhealthy thing. This codependency is what makes you feel like without this person, you won't be able to survive. So I can't leave them, even if they're abusing me.
Yeah. And
So,
so if if someone, listening to this recognizes that, oh, I think I may be a codependent personality, what are some steps that they can take? What can they do to sort of start working on themselves and creating that trust and safety within themselves?
so firstly, be really kind to yourself, because it's not your fault that you have a codependent pattern. It's probably something you learned as a child. So I know that when I first learned that I was codependent, I was like, oh my god, I'm terrible.
Mm.
But be kind to yourself. Firstly, the first rule of thumb is, the more you give yourself love and kindness, the more you will heal from whatever it is that you are
Yeah.
in. So once you're giving yourself the permission to be kind to yourself, I would say seek out therapy, seek out healing practices, revisit why you feel codependent. What is the underlying thought? So my process, this is nothing that is from, like, again, psychology, but my process is ask why 5 times backwards. So if I feel like, you know if I leave this person, I won't be able to survive, suppose I feel that, or my life will be over, very common line I hear, my life will be over if I leave this person, say why. And if you say, okay, it's because I will be alone, or I will be single, or I will be divorced, or I will be financially dependent, or in trouble, then say, okay, why will I be single? Why will I be divorced? Why will I be unhappy? All of those. So suppose you go back one more step and say, because I feel like if I'm alone, I won't be able to be happy.
Mm.
Okay, why won't I be happy? Because you'll find that you run out of answers after a point, and it's more of a conditioning of that one step down of the why. And actually, if you go down 5 steps, it doesn't hold true,
Mm.
right?
That's so
So
good. Yeah.
so ask yourself why, and you'll see that the reasons are not rooted in reality, but in a fear that lies just one step down, and you're not being able to see beyond that one step. So seek out therapy, go for alternative healing practices, go for meditation, take time out of that relationship, most importantly, because when you're codependent, your entire day is about that person.
Mm.
Firstly, take time out of that relationship to do things which are to do with you, right? So meditation is to do with you. Breath work, for example, is to do with you. Therapy is to do with you. So take
Yeah.
time out from that codependent relationship into work into oneself. And that is the beginning, because that'll be the beginning point of so many answers that you'll need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Go just keep asking yourself why. Yeah.
Minimum 5 times down, and you'll see you'll run out of actual reasons. Then you know that it's actually fear based,
Mm.
rather than reality based. So I'll give you an example. When I was leaving my abusive partner, I remember there was so much magic that happened back then to make me leave. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But I remember when I'd made the decision to leave, I was looking at our shoe rack, and I was looking at his shoes, and I was telling my sister, but this is my life. My life is the dhobi comes at 1 o'clock. You know, these are his shoes. I was fixating on like 6 by 6 feet of our life, and I was like, this is our life. And I couldn't see beyond it. And all we need is perspective, that life is beyond what you are in right now. And I think that's the perspective that I've always wanted to create on social media, by living a happy life, by being happy, by being, by being joyous. I want to show people that there is so much life beyond what you're in right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Okay, so we've talked about patterns that you kind of can begin to recognize in abusers. Now I want to talk about the opposite. What are some green flags that you can notice in a potential partner, which signal to you that this may be a healthy relationship that you can sort of invest your time exploring initially?
Yeah, that's a lovely question. And it took me I was just calculating around 14 years to arrive at an understanding of the green flags.
And
Because
the understanding will keep happening, keep going
keeps
on till,
happening.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
There is no such arrival of,
yeah.
understanding. Um, so number one is a person that is not that. Number one actually would be somebody who has a passion of his own
Mm, okay.
and is working towards fulfilling his highest self. It sounds very wishy-washy,
No, it sounds absolutely on point. Yes.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Like somebody who has a passion that he's actively pursuing, which doesn't necessarily have to do with uh, money, you know. So I'll give you an example. My partner Deepak, one of the things that drives him is justice. All right. And Deepak is like the greenest flag in the world. And I'm telling you, it took me many, many
That's
years
so
to
good.
arrive at green flags. But so, for example, everybody, like the most narcissistic person or person with the highest level of NPD, may have a huge passion to become, the next Steve Jobs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Mm,
talking about a passion to be the highest and the best and the best person he can be, and a commitment to doing that. And that is a very individualistic a commitment. It has nothing to do with your mother, your father, your sister, your wife. It just is a commitment to oneself, to evolving. So look at someone who's committed to evolving,
mm.
not financially only, not physically, but
As a soul, as a
spiritually,
human
as a
being.
soul, as a person, right?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, look out for people who are not trying to control you and are trying to just be the cheerleader in your journey,
Mm,
right? So, not trying to squash your goals, not trying to control the way you should be, but trying to uplift and enable your journey. So, look
mm,
out for enablers of your journey, right? So
yeah.
that's number two. Number three is I would say look out for people who invest in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah.
could be any kind of investment, but just invest into being better people. So the most important green flag, it actually comes from us.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people with codependency issues, or in general, a lot of us, we tend to mistake comfort and familiarity with love and connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you meet someone, you're like, oh my God, I'm immediately drawn, I'm immediately attracted. Just question yourself, is this a familiar feeling? Because this is a person who mirrors the kind of patterns you've grown up with, which is potentially codependency.
Yeah.
Or is this a person who your mind is intrigued by?
Mm,
Right. So the green flag is if you're immediately drawn, immediately enamored by someone, just question yourself, is this my codependency showing up, or is this me falling for a familiar pattern which feels comfortable for me,
yeah.
or is this genuinely an interesting person? So
Mm,
that would be a green flag at our end when it comes to our feelings.
yeah. I think another green flag for me, that's what I sort of always am looking for is, and again, because of our conditioning, this is literally like the baseline that you should be accepting in your life. But it is also just simply feeling safe enough to express your truth. whatever that may be, however
Absolutely.
uncomfortable you might think it makes the other person feel. But as long as, it's a
Absolutely.
safe environment for you to just speak your truths, share your feelings openly, and then create a dialogue out of that instead of, thinking that you need to walk on eggshells around that person all the time. Because that is a huge red flag
Absolutely.
for me.
Absolutely. So, like you said, this is like literally a baseline.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you had this journey, but I had this journey when I was younger.
Mhm.
Again, I would mirror what the other person wanted,
Mhm.
right? So, I'll give you an example. It's a shit example, but one guy I was dating, he liked women in salwar kameezes. I wore a lot of salwar kameezes. You know, the thing is, and it's only in my late 30s that I insisted I want to wear jhala clothes. I want to wear tracks and what do you call them? Sweatshirts. And I want to, that is my sense of style. I want to look like that. And anybody
Mhm.
who likes me needs to like me exactly who I am. From your dress to the way you are, to the what you do, to your passion, to your feelings, the baseline is that you have to be able to be you,
Yeah.
right? And anything less than that is abusive,
Yeah.
right?
Boom. Mic
Boom.
drop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, Our baseline has become so low that,
Yeah.
the absence of red flag is not a green flag, it's just the baseline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Because I remember when you were saying, that they should be a cheerleader and enabling you in your journey. I'm like, yeah, good luck finding that.
I also thought it was not possible.
Yeah,
And
no.
honestly, when I said, fuck it, I cannot do this. I cannot
Yeah,
do men, nahi hoga mere se,
yeah, yeah,
because I don't want to dumb myself down any longer. I want to
yeah.
be me. I want to do what I do. That's when I did find one, one of
Yeah,
those.
no, and of course, like I realize when I say that good luck finding that, like I know that is my limiting belief that I have to work on,
Yes,
obviously. But
yes,
yeah.
yes. But I was exactly there. Trust me,
Mm,
I had given up because you have so many invalidating experiences and you get the same kind of journey again and again. You're repeating that same cycle that I used to ask my therapist, what am I doing wrong? In
mm,
fact, I contacted a spiritual healer once.
mhm,
And I want to share that with you. I once contacted a spiritual healer. She was in LA. I found her on Instagram. She's beautiful, lovely soul. And I asked her, I took a session. I said, what am I doing wrong? Why am I
mm,
attracting the same person again and again and again and again? Except for my first relationship, which was perfectly healthy. Love him, love his wife, love his child, great relationship with all of them. Um, and she said something that was really interesting. She's like, I feel like you don't know how to receive. And
mm.
I was just like, okay, like, what do you mean by that? She's like, you reject the concept of receiving. So you are gravitating towards people who don't give,
Yeah,
right? And where you are the giver. Because, and she said, practice by letting someone pay for your coffee.
yeah,
I'm one of those people that I can't even let someone pay for my coffee. I'm like,
yeah,
no, 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 no.
yeah,
If someone wants to hold a bag for you, let them hold a bag for you. Also, I grew up hearing men are assholes, men are assholes, men are assholes, you know,
mm,
for whatever reason. I grew up hearing that. And we have to, and she said that. She's like, is there something that you heard growing up? I said, men are assholes, men are assholes. She's like, if you're going to hear that, you're going to attract that. So she's like,
exactly.
I want you to make a list of all the wonderful men in your life. And I did that, I remember. And I had, like, I thought I wouldn't find more than, say, my dad. But I found so many men in my life who were actually wonderful. And then I
Mm,
was like, fuck, men can be nice.
yeah,
It's just that I have been gravitating towards a kind of person that is completely unhealthy. And maybe it's time I, just see why I'm doing that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is, of course, it comes down to your beliefs. So it is like I was told, growing up, men only want one thing. And so
Huh.
then it's my job to sit down with that and be
Same.
like, no, that's actually not true. There are all sorts of people in this world.
Yes. Yes.
And I have to decide who I am going out into the world and attracting. And my limiting belief is not going to help me with that. So I need to decide who I want to attract towards myself, and then start building those beliefs and creating that identity for myself. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I also want to say that this is not to discount the fact that nobody should abuse. We could have all the beliefs, limiting beliefs in the world. Fir bhi, it does not give anyone the license to disrespect or abuse us, right?
of course.
And also, you and I are privileged. For example, there are so many privileges that we live in that
Yeah,
it's easier for us to remove these delimiting beliefs. But a lot of people, they're surrounded by so many daily experiences that continuously pound them into believing they are unworthy. So I
yeah,
speak for myself, I speak from a place of privilege, but in that, with given this privilege, I definitely have it in me to change the narrative in my head. And like you said, we have so many of these lines drilled into us as kids.
yeah,
Men only
yeah,
want one thing, safeguard yourself from men. Men are assholes. So we go out and we're finding those only mostly.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I think also one very important thing is simply if you sit down and ask yourself, like, what could be my limiting beliefs? Just that activity in recognizing those beliefs helps in sort of, because the moment you realize that, oh, this is the conditioning that I've been, programmed with, the moment you realize it, you begin to anyway question it and then release it and have it leave your
Absolutely.
system. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's something that I say that you can't unsee something that you've seen,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And to like this morning when I was going through just your list of what you wanted to talk about, I was like, shit, I saw it for the first time. Why I pivoted from healthy to unhealthy. And
Yeah.
that has been so liberating for me, because in the future, I will realize what guilt is capable of doing to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just taking some time out to
For
see,
yourself.
yeah, so
Yeah.
important, no? So
Yeah.
important. And as women, we don't do that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this might sound like blasphemy to some people out there, but what I want to know, what your personal experience or what your personal take is on forgiveness towards the person who has abused you.
Yeah.
Can you share your thoughts on that?
I got goosebumps when you said that, because it's such an important question. And I've been actively thinking of talking about it on social media. And I want to share this whole journey with you. So, when I left my abuser, the journey began with a whole lot of first shock,
Mm,
right? And as you articulate things that were done to you, there's an anger that grows inside you, right? So when I was with the person, I didn't even compound or, you know, compute what was happening, because you tend to remove yourself from situations just to deal.
yeah.
As I began talking about it, I started getting really angry. And I got angry to a point that it was crippling. Like,
Mm,
I'll be really honest, I would curse him and his enablers, right?
mm.
And that really worried my parents and my sister, because I remember my mom sat me aside and she said, this anger is going to make you fall sick. And
Wow, she said that, huh?
she
Because that's
said
really
that.
wise and true.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very true, right? I didn't see it. I just wanted to spew that anger and I couldn't spew it to them. So I would just verbalize my anger and just curse them. And when she said that to me, I was like, you're right. I'm feeling horrible. I feel horrible. And although anger is such an important part of the journey, you have to ultimately, once you're, done feeling it, you have to move past it. So she gave me a really good piece of advice. She said, she's very religious. I'm not. I'm spiritual, but not religious. She said, why don't you ask God for advice? And to me, God is the universe, and the universe is God.
Yeah.
So I remember I just sat down one day, matha tekod, because that is the place that I, associate with God. And I said, just what do I do about this anger? What do I do? And because I've always been fairly intuitive, that day the answer came to me, pray for them. And I was like, what? Why? Why would I do that? And it was just like, pray for them, pray for them, pray for them. I was like, okay, I'll try
Wow.
this. I'll try this. Because I just wanted to feel not angry. It was like the anger consumes you. And just talking about the anger that I felt that time, I'm dipping into it. So my hands are cold. So I remember I put on a lot of weight at that time. So I used to go for a walk around this place, this garden that I take circles and circles and circles of after gym. And I remember saying, okay, fine, I'll go to the gym. And then as I take circles around that garden, I will pray at that time. So I remember I would touch the plants on the circumference of that garden and I would say, I would pray for him and his entire family and individually. And I would pray for their growth. I would pray for their evolution. I would pray for their peace. And I would pray for whatever served them for their higher purpose. And I remember the first day was like, I didn't believe a word coming out of my mouth, but I was just going through it mechanically. Second day, I didn't believe a word out of my mouth. Third day I was pushing through it because I felt nothing was changing. A week after my prayers, I physically and tangibly felt the anger leave my body. Okay.
Wow.
And now again, I'm saying that with the privilege of not having, children to feed, of being financially, well off to not have to worry about finances, family to support me. So there's no constant struggle that make me that remind me of the anger every day, right? That is a privilege that I had. But given that privilege, I felt the anger leave my body within a week of praying for them. And this was very soon after leaving. I would say 3 months after leaving.
Okay.
And honestly, excuse me, I burped.
Okay. Women burp.
Yeah, we
Men
burp. We
fart
burp.
also.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I remember that day I felt the anger leave my body. And that day I realized you cannot be very angry with someone who you pray for. It's this weird mechanics that works in our head,
Sure.
right? And it didn't mean that I resented um, what had happened. It didn't mean that I didn't work towards whatever I had to do to safeguard myself against them and to fully and completely separate myself from all of them. I continued with that journey, but what changed was there was a sense of forgiveness that came about for what had happened. And I realized that how much how terrible a person must feel inside to do this to another person. And for a change, instead of looking at it from a survivor and victim point of view, I looked at how terrible you must feel inside to do this to another person and to have to live with the thought that you've done this to another person. And honestly, I felt bad. I felt bad for that person for a second. And that day onwards, Akanksha, I believe I forgave him and I forgave all of them. That didn't stop me from doing the work I needed to do,
Yeah.
but my insides felt at peace to the
Yeah.
point that I used to say to my folks and my friends that at any point, if he wants to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk to me, I may be triggered, but I would be okay with it.
Mm.
There is
Yeah.
absolutely no connection. There is only, it sounds so preachy, but it's the truth. There is compassion.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a selfish compassion because I did it for myself to feel better myself. And
Of
it just
course.
so happened that it worked, and my
That's beautiful.
insides felt
Wow.
right. And that's why it's important. Having said that, there are so many women who don't have the privilege of, they have to be in court cases, they have to be in custody battles, they have to be maybe in the same party circuit as their abuser. It's re-traumatizing. My privilege is I never had to see any of them ever again
Yeah.
and not deal with any consequences of our relationship.
Mm.
So that is my thought
That's a
about
beautiful, yeah.
forgiveness.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me that question because it's really important.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I believe is that once you are able to process that anger in a healthy manner for yourself and create that space within yourself, then you can actually do more of your soul-led work, your purpose, and do it better and share your voice more eloquently, I feel. Otherwise
Absolutely.
the anger just, yeah, if the anger is consuming you, you're still um working from a very limited kind of a constricted space
Yeah.
inside your body. Yeah.
Right. Also, I feel like we are taught to quell our anger and say, don't be angry, don't be angry. The
Yeah,
thing is,
exactly.
be angry, deal with it, and express it, and take it out of your system in a healthy way and work on transmuting it as much as you can. And that transmutation can happen through so many different processes. One more thing I want to say is because I was able to right the wrong in my capacity,
Mhm.
I feel like the anger was quelled more. Now, tomorrow, if I let him do all that and if I let him get away scot free, maybe my forgiveness journey would have been a lot more difficult. But that's what I'm saying. Your forgiveness is in your head, but the action that needs to be done to right a wrong is also a big part of the forgiveness journey. Otherwise, you feel like you've been used and thrown,
Mm, yeah.
right? And
Okay.
that is a whole other journey, uh, for forgiveness.
Wow. Okay. So if you were to give a piece of advice to your younger self
Hmm.
at whatever age, what would it be? What message would you give to her?
I would definitely tell myself to love myself and uh, feel more worthy. In a nutshell, I did not feel worthy. I would want to tell myself that I am worthy in every way because this one lack of self worth would lead me to so many decisions that, were unhealthy for me. And I'd say invest in things that remind you of your self worth. So we're not taught about self worth, self esteem, patterns, relationship styles, attachment styles. We're not taught any of that in school, college. We're not taught to meditate. We're not taught a spiritual practice. And I feel that is what gets you through life. So I would
Yeah.
have said, instead of in my 30s, after the trauma happening to me, seeking out all these things, maybe invest in it in your late teens, in your early 20s, invest in it then and there, because that's going to really increase the quality of your life. Um, I would say invest in all these practices.
Yeah. But when you said that, it reminded me of this time where I read this thing related to spirituality where it says that it you you can't seek it, it seeks you. So it's like
Yeah,
your 20s are meant to go through stuff so
yeah.
that then you are formed into the person that you're
You're
meant to be.
absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
So,
But having said that, at least develop your self-worth like a skill. So we do
yeah.
MBA, we do ye wo, whatever, whatever. But
Mhm.
thoda sa, develop your self-worth because I think that's a life skill we need to be taught. Self-worth and some kind of inner practice. Because again, codependency, when you're always tethered to something else, a spiritual
Yeah.
practice helps you tether to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's, yeah.
I wish for the next generation, at least it becomes a daily, regular part of life. Let's
I
see.
think things are changing for the next generation. At least, I mean, maybe they're not into spiritual practices, but I do feel that this younger generation is a lot more aware of what's going on within them. So at least
True.
that self-awareness is there, which in my case was not there at all
Same,
when I was in
same,
my
same,
20s.
sis, same. I was just chilling,
Yeah,
living my life, making
yeah,
mistakes.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, okay, cool. Wow. So we've already been speaking for an
Is
hour.
this too much?
There is so much more that I want to talk to you about, but I think we will keep that for another episode. I would love to have you again
I'd
and
love to be back.
talk about manifestation because that's huge, and I know you wanted to talk about it. So we will keep that for a separate episode. Why don't you please give us information on where we can find you, how, if there is a woman who is going through any sort of abuse, how she can reach out to you and where she can reach out to you.
Sure. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is Atikaa_Aluwalia. Very complicated spelling. We'll just
I'll put it
put
in
it out
the
somewhere.
captions and everything. Yeah.
Reach out to me on my DMs also, and my links. You can find a link to book a free session for a one-on-one. If you have any questions on healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, if you feel like you're going through abuse, if you want advice on how to deal with an abusive relationship or getting out of one, just reach out, DM. It's informal. I'm very approachable. Just reach out and we'll be in touch.
All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Atika, for taking out the time today.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
am sure this episode is going to be so helpful to so many women out there. And thank you for sharing your journey, your gifts, sharing yourself with the world. This is what we need, more and more women sharing their voice. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, Akanksha, for having me here, because I always want and need platforms to spread the word, because like I said, it's a sisterhood, it's a personhood, and we need to just talk more for us to evolve together as a
Yeah.
community. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. And it's funny how life works out.
Yeah.
From the NIFT hostel in Green Park near Horsecars to
Nice.
this. Yeah.
Next to the IIT
Yes.
boys hostel. Oh my
Yes,
God.
yes, yes. From there to talking about interpersonal abuse, intimate partner violence, and spiritual practices on your podcast, I'm very proud of your journey, firstly.
Yay! Thank you so
So,
much.
lots of love and
Thank
looking
you. I
forward.
love you so
I
much.
love
Yes.
you
And
too.
I will have you again.
Yes.
Bye. Take care.
See you.